Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are so excited because we've got Dr. Kathy Gruver back on the show. She's a health speaker, an award-winning author, and an expert in so many things, and she's a hypnotherapist, so she might put me to sleep today. I don't know. I'm just kidding. There's no heck. She's also a life and executive a certified coach, and she's got 30 years of experience in body and mind medicine. And you go way back with us, like way back.
Way,
we're
way
still
back.
young, though. We're still young.
Oh my God. Yeah, we didn't age at all.
Yeah, we didn't have Zoom when we first did podcasts together. We were on phones and internet, and it's a lot different, isn't it?
It really is. No, I was just telling someone the other day because they wanted to start doing podcasts and things like that. And I was talking about how, like, you guys were my first foray into that sort of thing. And I was in your newsletter every month. And then I would do a radio show on, what was it, Blog Talk Radio? Is that what?
We were on Blog Talk is where we started. And I mean, it's 18 years this year. And we were with them for about 16 and a half. And then, you know, sometimes you have to move. And then we moved again, because sometimes that happens in life. And, but it's gotten better. I mean, the whole media, it's changed so much, you know. And you had written your first book, The Alternative Medicine Cabinet, which is your website. And that was how we connected, was through that book.
It was that was a long time ago. And actually that website's totally defunct. Talk about changing things. It's now just kathygruver.com.
Everyone, kathygruver.com, go check that out. And you've written a number of books. How many books have you got? What's the latest?
I'm working on my 9th.
Oh, wow. Now,
I've been busy since I saw you last. Yeah.
New ones. And we did shows on massage therapy. I remember actually talking about you on show a few shows ago, and we were talking about health and everything. And I said, well, Dr. Kathy Gruver, I'll never forget this, saying how we create pain in our lives over the most mundane things of not even understanding it. And I think someone was talking about chiropractor help. And I said, look, that you were talking about how, like, guys would come in like with a sore butt cheek, you know, and it was because they would have a wallet. They'd be sitting on their wallet all the time and then not understanding why they're going through all this pain. And it's like, you're creating your own pain. I remember that. It's always stuck with me, because anytime I see a guy with a big back, you know, I'm like, what's on your butt?
I call that job security.
You know. You know, but things have changed too. I mean, now we don't have as much cash walking around. We're more, do we even have checkbooks these days?
I just wrote a check yesterday, so I still have one. I don't know about
girls. But yeah, I mean, so much change. I remember you'd written your book, and you had another one, and then another one, and you went to Harvard. Remember that? And then you got your doctor, Dr. Kathy Gruver. You did TEDx.
Not from Harvard. I just got not from Harvard. I have to clarify. I did not get my PhD from Harvard.
Okay, but you went through their health.
I did. I went through their mind-body medicine program. So I think I've been to Harvard maybe 6 or 7 times, and I did a week-long program that was like 40 hours of education, which was incredible. And then I went back and did a bunch of weekends. So I studied with Thich Nhat Hanh, which was such a huge honor. He's now passed on. But yeah, I got to sit with Thich Nhat Hanh, and we did walking meditation and mindful eating, and it was absolutely incredible. And then I said with John,
I thought it was funny when you got into meditation, because you're like a very lively individual. I mean, look at you you're doing trapeze acts and things now too, you know? So, and I remember you talking about meditation going, I don't know. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, meditation is good. We need to do more meditation. I'm going, what? And then didn't you do like a silent retreat thing?
I've done a couple silent retreats. Yeah. Yes, I cannot talk for 3 days. It was great. Well, and you know, it's so funny because it was at a place called Lake Shrine in LA, which thank goodness was spared by the fires down in, because they were right on the edge. So I don't know if it's because they were down in a gully, or if the firefighters just worked hard on that, or if there's some divine intervention with that. But yeah, I would show up on a Friday, and we would silent until Sunday late afternoon, and the meals were silent. But what was so fascinating is everyone's like, that's so hard, except everybody was silent. So it's not like you're in your daily life trying to be quiet when everyone else is talking to you. We were all being silent. So it was kind of the easiest thing in the world. But what was funny is, you know, people would set their cups down very quietly, and they were walking very quietly. And it's like, it's not like you're not being a mime. You have the ability to like make noise, but But oh, it was such a beautiful, it was such a, I really would love to do another one, but I don't know that I don't even think they're reopened, but
I think when you got into meditation, all of that, I was like, wow, like that is huge to do. And so meditation, is that something you do daily or yeah?
yep. And
Okay.
there are days that I'm great at it, and there are days I still suck at it. You know, it's
Mm.
why it's a meditation practice and not a meditation perfect. And I've had
Ooh.
clients that, you know, they want to dive into meditation and they, oh, I can't do it. And I said, well, tell me how you tried it. Well, I pulled up the pillow and I sat there for half an hour. I'm like, oh, no, time out. Why don't you start with 3 minutes? And they go, 3 minutes? And I said,
Mhm.
did a half hour suck? Try 3 minutes. If you can do
Mhm.
3 mediocre minutes, I would rather have that than a half hour of sucking. And then
Mhm.
you get frustrated and then you're judging yourself and then you don't go back and do it. You know, it's like you're
Mm.
not going to wake up tomorrow and decide to run a marathon that afternoon. It's a progress, it's a process, right? So that's the biggest impediment I see to meditation is people try to dive into this huge practice. And it's like,
Mm.
I literally started with 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well, the only, well, because I do have monkey mind, right? I do.
Oh, sure, we all do.
And I've kind of gotten, because we deal with animals a lot as we travel the country, but we also do a lot of walking and dog walking. So when you're walking a dog, and which just cracks me up is what I see a lot of people is they're walking with their phone in their face. And I've seen people walk into
Mm-hmm.
cars, walk into street lamps. You know, Nancy loves to just people watch. Says we travel the country. She's
Yeah.
like, go, there's a rest area. Let's just sit and watch people. And that's her
Mm.
thing. Yeah. We've seen some very interesting things in rest
I'll bet
areas.
I
That's
do that in
all.
airports.
Do you do that too?
Because
See,
I travel so much. So I sort of have a
yeah.
mental like airport bingo where I look for certain things as I'm going through.
Oh my God.
Makes the
See,
travel fun.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But the walking thing to me is a meditation because I'm actually just very focused on the animals, and the
Yep.
animals are always sniffing things and making us be more observant of things that we just are not, we're just so busy and put the phone away, right?
Yep.
I do have to take photos of things once in a while, but
Sure.
if you put the phone away, I feel like, and then you're doing some kind of activity, it helps me focus. Or driving is like meditation.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and it is really about that present moment and noticing the aliveness of what's around you. And now that we have this phone, we don't have to be present. We can say, oh, what's happening on TikTok? What's happening on, you know, we don't have to be still. And I think
yeah.
as beautiful it is that the internet can connect people around the world, if we still can't stop and say hello to our neighbor,
Mm.
what is this leading to? You know, I think I blame social media and the internet for so many of our problems.
I was going
Um,
to ask you about that because of social media, and obviously the world is a little wonky, and everyone's like, politics have, we thought the election would end everything and everybody would get on with their lives, and that's not true. And then there's true stuff happening in the world, and I look at families are dividing. There's some real negative stuff.
mhm,
I always find, like, I belong to a Facebook group called the Gratitude Club, where you
hmm,
have to write 5 things you're grateful for every day. And now sometimes I forget what day it is. Maybe I'll put 3 in there by accident going, did I do that today? But I do, it makes me really realize, you were on our
mhm.
Champagne Sunday show. That was the
Yeah.
point, is no matter what hell is going on in the world or your town, your life, your family, whatever's going on, you got to find one good thing at least to
Yep.
be happy about or thankful for. And so, with what you do, I know you travel the world teaching people about stress management, and you've worked with, first responders. I've seen, I follow you on
Mhm.
social media. I'm like, man, look at you were on Dr. Phil, you did 2
Yeah.
TEDx talks. I remember all that, and I'm going, man,
Mhm.
you had a goal, you went for it. But
Yeah.
stress, I feel like we're allowing a lot of external stuff to become our own stress. So, any tips for
Mhm.
people right now in regards to social media, in regards to maybe family arguing over all of
Mhm.
this stuff?
Yeah. So we're all going to have different opinions about anything, right? I mean, there's going to be
Mhm.
disagreements. When you get so stuck in I have to be right, that's when you make somebody else other, right? So
Mm.
it becomes us versus them. And it's interesting because you said the word negative earlier, these things are negative. There's really no negative thing. There's a thing. And
Oh, that's a
our
good point.
brains decides if it's positive or negative because what's
Mm.
positive for you might be negative to me. So that's our judgment. That's our perception on it. This is why there's no reality. There's only perception. right? I use the parable all the time of this farmer has one son, one horse, and huge amounts of land. And the villagers gather around and say, "Oh, what a shame that you only have one son and one horse. You could plow so much more. This is this is terrible." And the farmer said, "We'll see." And the next day, all these wild horses arrive and take up residence at this guy's house. And so the villagers gather around and they say, "Oh, you've got all these horses now. This is such a blessing." And the farmer says, "We'll see." The next day, the son gets on one of the new horses to help him, to help the horse to know how to plow the field. The horse bucks, the son falls, breaks his arm. The villagers gather around. "Oh my God, your only son. This is the worst thing ever. This is so horrible." And the farmer says, "We'll see." 2 days later, the army comes, takes all able-bodied men to go fight to war, surely to die. And the son can't go because he broke his arm. So the villager gathers around and says, "Oh, this is so lucky your son broke his arm." And the farmer says, "We'll see." So there's just things. And we put this positive or negative label on it. And sometimes we're really wrong. I mean, there's been times in my life where why didn't I get that role? Or why didn't that boy talk to me? Or and thank God it didn't happen that way. I thought it was going to be good or bad. And it turned out not to be that way. So I think the first thing it would be great to do is to stop labeling things like that. Just, it's a thing.
It's a fact. Stick with facts.
Right. And to that point, what do I know to be true? Because Eckhart Tolle, who I've done tons of studying with, talks about, it's not our life. It's not the how does he phrase it? I've read it in so many different ways. It's not our life circumstance that makes us unhappy. It's the story we tell about that. So it's not the traffic, it's the story we tell about the traffic. It's not the broken leg, it's the story we tell about the broken leg. And if it's a neutral thing, and our brain stops because our brain makes up all these stories. What do I know to be true? I'm stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
Period. And if we stay present in that, because the traffic jam isn't about right now, it's about where you should be in 20 minutes or why you should have left earlier. It's not about the right now. So if we can stay in the right now, stress kind of goes away. It's hard to do. It's simple. It's not easy.
You know what? I think you're really, I mean, it's really true because, there's been a lot of things going on in the world, like I was saying. And like last year, Nancy and I dodged 4 hurricanes, and it was hell to actually dodge them. And we went through ice storms. I drove mountain passes at night in ice storms with trucks. So there's and you want to talk about, you better focus because you get skid
present
on ice.
Yep.
You are in the present, and if anybody's setting me, I'm like, just shut up, leave me be.
Yeah, focusing.
This is it. Because you couldn't, if you sneezed, you're going to slide driving wise.
Yeah.
So there was these moments, but even I remember the one ice storm. Then the day comes, and I'm now in daylight, and it's still really scary. And I'm at this point like, this is it. I am done. I'm over it, but I am tired. And it's beautiful. We have an avalanche warning where we're driving, and I'm like, this is insane, y'all. And then I start to freak out. Of course, Nancy knows my language really well. So everybody who knows me, sorry, it's a little salty. But then she's like, well, you're going to quit just because right now you're upset. Maybe, let's just calm down and look at it. It is beautiful, right? I look up and there's 3 bald eagles just sitting right up there looking down. And I looked at her, I'm like, all right, I don't want to give up all this stuff that we've been doing. It's an adventure. Sometimes you go through it, but the focus kept us alive. The present moment kept us alive, because if I got emotional while we went through the really scary stuff, then you start to lose control. And I think human beings, we all want control, don't we? In some ways.
Yes. And we grasp things, right? So if you pick up a pile of sand in your hand and you cup it gently, it's going to stay there. If you squeeze really hard to hold on to it, it falls through your fingertips. So, and something that you just said reminded me. So it's like, so imagine if you're driving on that mountain pass, right? And you're going around those curves. Imagine if you're thinking about 1 5 ahead.
Yeah.
You can't think about 1 5 ahead. You have to think about the one right here, all right? Or else it's dangerous. You can't think about the one you just went through. Whew, no. Thank God I made that. You have to stay with what is right in front of us. And I think so often we forget that. I had shoulder injections yesterday.
Ooh.
Horrible. The injections itself were fine, But about 2 hours afterwards, I was hit, Lisa, with such pain. And I have a huge pain tolerance. Like, and it was a 12 for me, which probably would have killed somebody else. I was moaning and screaming. And I mean, it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I had my husband come home from work because I couldn't do anything. And I started to think, oh my God, how am I going to sleep tonight? And then I was like, that's 10 hours away or 8 hours away. Why are you worried about how you're going to sleep tonight when you can't even pull your pants down to go to the bathroom right now? And I have to say, the pain, I finally took a pill because I was in so much pain, but I relaxed it, I iced it, I slept fine. So I started to project into this, oh God, what's going to happen in 8 hours? Well, it actually ended up being okay. So why are we doing that to ourselves? Why suffer twice? Why are we pulling to this beautiful present moment, some unknown future? And we always what if the bad stuff, right? We don't what if the good stuff. No one wakes up and goes, oh, what if I win the lottery?
Yeah.
It's the what if the IRS comes and what if the kid moves in and what if the whatever, it's like the what if brain. Because we all have that monkey mind. We all have that brain that wants to fatalize some yet to be experienced future.
And then you're living, and what's interesting is because we it's that flight or fight thing, that we don't necessarily need. And so I've been in the circumstance where I do need that, and plenty, because of the travel. You travel the world, that there's like, oh, I better be really on it. But you still, if you add on top of that, like you're saying, that the curves of the road, like the mountain pass, if you don't stay in the present, then and you get emotional, you're gonna lose. You're gonna be in that hesitation mode, and that's when you get in trouble. So it's important to kind of look at that now, like with families. So you work with families, I know, and that can bring some stress in there. And sometimes I think you have to families need to sit down and sometimes just say, get over it. Like the past is the past sometimes, because sometimes people are living the past over and over, and don't let somebody off. Like, we all make mistakes. We all screw up. And there's got to be a point of balance, because family stress is pretty bad. Like when it happens,
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I mean, I believe, and I've done a lot of studying of compassionate inquiry and Gabor Mate, and I can pretty much say everything comes from childhood trauma. And it doesn't have to be big T trauma. It could be little T trauma. It could be, you turn in the grocery store and your mom's in the other aisle already and you didn't see her go. And you have this this moment of, oh God, she abandoned me. Or she's 2 minutes late to get you at kindergarten. Or she takes you to kindergarten at all. And all you've known is your mom's apron strings. And now you're suddenly being taken to this other place where she's going to leave. I mean, for a 4-year-old, that can be horribly traumatizing. I was like, let's get on with the schooling. So every kid responds differently to that. But every feeling that I have now, I'm going to call it a negative feeling, even though negative is not quite the word I want, but negative feeling I have now goes back to some childhood thing. I can trace it back 90% of the time. So everything that's happening politically, this feeling of unfairness, this feeling of being taken advantage of, this feeling of not having a voice. For those of you who are feeling that right now, is this the first time you felt that? Probably not.
Yeah. So
this goes back. Yeah, this goes back to us feeling unseen, unheard, unacknowledged, unaccepted from way back. So none of it's new. So having the family just let it go, sometimes that'll work, but there has to be healing that comes from that. And whether you heal it with the rest of the family or you heal it with yourself, which is what internal family systems is about looking at those parts of ourselves that are coming forward for something, or doing something like compassionate inquiry, where you sit with that feeling and ask, what does that feeling want from you? And 9 times out of 10, when I have someone sit in their sadness, anger, grief, anxiety, depression, the feeling just wants to be acknowledged. Because as a little kid, if you're scared and you go to your mom and say, I'm really scared, she says, there's nothing to be scared about. Shut up, you're bothering me. So we have these feelings that we don't like. I wish I didn't feel that way. Well, you're basically saying to that little kid, shut up, you bother me. I'll give you something to cry about, kind of thing.
Go play in the traffic. See what happens.
Rub some dirt in it and, get over it. And I grew up in the 80s. So that was what it was. There was no let's sit down and talk about feelings.
No,
so
we
now,
didn't
as an adult, when I have feelings, I can every single time trace them back to either a vague childhood thing of just simply not being seen or not being accepted for who I am, or a very specific incident, right? And if we sit with it long enough, we can trace that back and realize that it's not about this thing in front of us. It's probably about something that happened before, and we can heal that. There's ways to heal that.
Yeah, that, it's kind of like filing your filing system. If something hasn't been filed, it's going to sit there and nag you because you keep seeing it. And you should have filed it, but you didn't, and you don't know how to file it.
And the file gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you have the not
then it's going to be on your butt cheek again, and now you're going to hurt.
Exactly. Well, but I mean, if you take your file folder and you're like, okay, I was not acknowledged. My anger was punished when I was a kid. So you put that piece of paper in the file folder. Then when you're 10 in grade school, you get in trouble for being angry about something, and you put that piece of paper in there. And by the time you're 50, you've got this, expando folder of stuff which is my anger is not acknowledged. And then you shove down your own anger, because thank God we have anger, right? If we didn't have anger, we wouldn't send the soup back. We'd all be doormats. No one would march on Washington. No one would write to their congressman. No, not much would change if we didn't have healthy anger. Now, what do we do with the anger? Do we shove it away and it becomes a heart attack? Or do we act it out and we're cruel to everybody around us? Or do we say, I'm feeling anger right now, and use that to motivate you to change? We have the choice. We have the choice.
Yeah, so it is about, again, being in the present moment, taking the emotion aside, thinking about it, and going, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle that? You know, there's a lot of reactivity that happens. And I think, we've been seeing that in the world lately.
Yeah.
This reactivity. So it's almost like creating your own PTSD in a way as you go through. Like, if you think about it, so what was you may be traumatic to you as a kid, right? And you haven't dealt with it, it is post-traumatic, right? So it's something, and you carry and carry and carry. So there's I had a PTSD when we went through the wildfires in San Diego years and years and years ago, but I didn't realize I didn't sleep for a year and a half because we're always on watch for a fire. And I thought that if I was going to sleep, we're going to burn down,
Yeah.
And we had arsonists try to burn down our town, and it was a insane. We were all driving around with shovels, and all of us, to put out fires, I think the whole town had it in different.
Oh, sure.
And people were fighting and caring and fighting and caring, and it was this crazy thing. And I didn't realize until a good friend of mine, who's a psychic medium of all people, she just looked at me. She says, "Lisa, you have what's called PTSD right now." I said, "What? What is that?" And she says, "No, you're intensely done. You need to go to sleep. The fires are over. You're allowed to go to sleep now." And
it's safe.
I didn't realize how uptight I was getting until someone just went, and like, if Nancy tried to tell me, it's my mom, I'm going to argue it.
Sure.
And she knows that. I know she can hear me. She's going to go, "Yep, that's right." But it took someone saying, "Hey, this is what it is." And as soon as I heard that, I went, "Oh yeah, I don't need to be like this anymore. I had to change." So I feel like what you do, with people, I know you do a lot of groups and work with clients individually. As soon as you have that knowledge, it's almost like, it was almost like it went away. But,
well, and there's such power in naming it, right? So that's the other thing. I mean, I have one client who is so cerebral. I mean, he is incredibly bright. He's an accountant. He's a CPA. But he lives from here up. That's it. And there's been times where we're having a conversation, I hand him the feelings wheel, and I'm like, "How do you feel?" I keep a feelings wheel in my office because people go, "Oh, I don't know. Is it anger?" Feelings are hard to name. I'm not great at it. So this feeling wheel is fabulous because it starts out with anger, sadness, joy, the sort of the main ones from inside out. And then it radiates out into the sort of subsets of what that emotion is. And I think when we get in touch with that, we can name it, because if you can't name it, see it, how do you help it? I mean, it just becomes this vague feeling of dis-ease if you're not naming it. And I think there's an importance to that of, what are the feelings? And, Gabor Mate all the time will call people, "What are you feeling?" Abandon. And he'll say, abandon's not a feeling. Abandon's a perception. And so he really makes people name the feeling. And I have seen such great work come out of that sort of practice.
He's amazing. He's done some really cool things. Yeah.
I love him.
I've seen what he's done for families as well. And I mean, because I've seen a lot of families, just that's it. Like, a lot of parent and child like splits that I've never seen before. I don't know how that started. Like it was a no-no in our day growing up, right?
Yeah.
And that was a no-no. Even, I mean, we've had one split in our family that was pretty good, and it needed to happen because it was incredibly toxic
Yeah.
and it wasn't going to change. And I'm the one who said, y'all, I didn't grow up like this. Nancy, let's get the hell out of this. This is sick.
Hmm.
And honestly, as soon as we went away from it, we're like, oh, we're human again. So
Yeah.
there are some family relationships that you do need to walk away. But
Absolutely. Well,
mm,
because especially if there's a toxicity, if there's abuse, if there's addiction, if there's, I mean, I have a
mm,
couple clients that whose son was addicted and they finally kicked him out of the house and said, we cannot manage you and we love
yeah.
you and we're so sorry, but you have to go.
Mm,
And he went from halfway house to halfway house to halfway house, and unfortunately
no.
ended up passing away on the streets.
Oh.
And of course, the family felt terrible, but they're like, it was so toxic for our other kids, for
Mm,
us. I mean, they spent millions of dollars taking him through various rehab programs and sending him to other states. And they just finally went, you've
mm.
got to figure this out. And there's some parents that are probably going, I could never do that. It's an individual decision. But how long do you drain everything out of your life for someone who's having a mental health crisis and isn't willing to look at that,
Mm.
And I think
Well,
that came to the crux of it.
do you think our country is getting better at mental health and understanding it?
I think, do I think as a
We're
country,
talking about it. I mean, PTSD wasn't even a word back then. Back in the,
yeah,
you know what I
I'm trying to
mean?
decide if I think we're getting better at it. I think the awareness of it is better. I think the stigma maybe getting a little better. I think the treatment of it is still shit. Can I say shit on your show?
Yeah.
Great. I think it's still shit.
Yeah.
Because um, the last few people that I've had dealing with psychiatry, and the point of psychiatry, they're medical doctors that specialize in medicine. I have seen people get vastly misdiagnosed, which means they're put on the wrong meds, which this is where I'm so pleased I'm a coach, right? I've been coaching for years. I'm certified as a coach. I see more and more people turning to my type of practitioner for help because they don't need a psychiatrist. They don't have a diagnosable thing. They don't need medication. That's all that a psychiatrist is going to do. They're not going to counsel you. They're not going to coach you. They're not going to talk to you. They're going to diagnose, put down what it says in the DSM, whatever number we're up to, 3R, 5R, and then they're going to hand you a pill. A lot of people don't need that. So they're turning to life coaches and executive coaches and couples coaches like myself because they don't really need a therapist. They sort of just want a guide to help
figure it
them move
out.
forward. And that's where I go. I don't tell people what to do. I don't diagnose you. I don't need to go on a fishing expedition to dig in the past, except to inform the future so that we can move forward. And I have clients that have seen the same therapist for 5 years. And I'm thinking,
That's not normal.
that's not what that's supposed to be.
Mm-mm.
So are they not moving you forward? Are they not solving your problems? Is it tell me about your mother, you cry the next week? Tell me about your mother, you say the same story, you cry. Where's the resolution with this?
Mm.
Because rehashing the past week after week is not going to solve the problem. So what exercises, what activities? I give my clients homework, usually every session, but not always. And I've had clients come back from the therapist and they tell me what they talked about. And I go, oh, well, did she give you an exercise for that? And they're like, no. And I'm thinking, then what are you doing? So I think we're seeing a shift in that way. I think psychologists are studying more and more and being more hands-on active. And I think the coaching profession is skyrocketing. So in that way, I think we're managing it better. But nationally, I don't know that things are changing.
Mm. And what about for our first responders? I've seen you do a lot of group speak. I mean, around the world, going around,
Yep.
and and during the pandemic, my heart was just so sad for what with the nurses and the
Yep.
doctors, what they were going through, the medical people. Um, that was sad for them. It was hard
Yeah.
and tiring, and they were putting themselves in a threat every single day.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
I have an interesting story about that. So one of the first talks that I gave was to it was sort of it was health and safety. So it was not only some first responders, it was also pipeline guys and prison people. And, it was mostly men. I would say it was 90% men. It was in New Orleans, the last day of the conference, Friday morning at 8 a.m. Stress talk. And I thought, no one's coming to this. was a breakout session, so they didn't have to be there. And I thought, this is going to be crap. No one's showing up to this. So it was supposed to start at 8. I got there at 7:15, got my technology set up. At 7:30, there was one woman in the room. And I started up a chat with her and I said, hey, if it's just you and me, I'll just coach you for an hour. She goes, oh, I would love that. That would be, I need this so much. And she bought a book and all this stuff. And slowly, 1 or 2 people came in. I turned, I was doing something else. And by 10 minutes to 8, the room was full, standing room only. And, big, hearty guys that are heading off to a pipeline or,
yeah,
they ate this up. And I had a line of people afterwards thanking me and hugging me. These big guys that you would never think are going to sit down and meditate, thanking me for giving them tools because they were so hurting. And they're like, we need this and we don't get this and we are forgotten. And it was heartbreaking, but so heartening in that these guys woke up at whatever time they had to be there on the last day of the conference after the big party the night before to learn about how to take care of themselves.
that's amazing.
That was so exciting for me. And every time I've done first responders, firefighters, 911 dispatchers, nurses, the room is full because people know they need this. And I get a lot of really great feedback afterwards about, I think you just saved lives today, which,
oh, wow.
There's nothing better to hear than that. If one person walks away with a tool that helps them be better, I did my job.
I think, we look at all the police brutality that has hit our country. And Nancy and I always sit there and go, a lot of, okay, yes, there's always going to be, good cops, bad cops. That's a reality, right? Just
there's going to be good everything, bad everything.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, every profession.
Good teacher, bad teacher, good podcaster, bad podcaster. Shit. We said it, yeah. So it's there's a good and the bad, but when I look at a lot of these first responders, policemen and military, and if there's that brutality part, and Nancy and I have talked about this over and over. Yes, there are racist cops, but I'm talking aside of that, who is helping the police force who are dealing with traumatic situations every single day? Do they have therapy that is actually part of the lifestyle or the part of the team, part of the actual department that, hey, every morning, we're going to have this, we're going to have a meditation session, that kind of thing, where it's actually part of your job is mental health.
Right. My understanding, and I don't know, is probably not. What happens, I think, and again, I'm not in this industry, but unless something, you have access to a psychologist. There's someone that the police works with.
Okay.
That is a resource, but most people only use it. Vast generalization. If for any law enforcement that's listening, please correct me. They only seek that out once something has happened. They only seek that out once they've lost their partner or once they shot that kid accidentally or I don't know that they're keeping up with it on a daily basis. And what's interesting is I had to deliver something, drop something at UPS a couple of years ago, and I needed to be there first thing in the morning, drop it off when they opened. And I was waiting in line to drop off my package, and I see all the trucks out there, all the guys in a big circle. And I'm like, oh. So as I got to the front, I said, oh, what's happening out there? And she said, oh, every morning before everyone runs their routes, they have a little motivational talk. They all become present. They all talk about, they go around and just say one word about how they're feeling. They kind of get together and go before they head out to deliver all the packages. And I thought, wow,
that's amazing.
That is so cool. Now, this is just Santa Barbara. I don't know that that's a global thing. But I was so excited to see all these guys just all right, let's do it. Go out, be safe, have fun. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just because they're out in traffic. They are in situations. They are,
And they're rushing and they're lifting and they're interacting. And let's make that as safe and present as you can be. So that was so exciting to me to see all these UPS guys in their little brown suits yeah. Now, do the police and fire and stuff do that? I don't know that they do.
Yeah.
And the continuing ed that they take, I do these conferences once a year when I get to go to them. There's often a health and wellness track. And there's, about stress, about communication, about PTSD, about animal therapy, about, so there's a track of that, but it's not required. So this is why in a breakout session, do you want to learn about the latest body cam stuff? Or do you want to learn about this new firearm technique? Or do you want to learn to meditate? They're
that's
having to
interesting.
pick, at least in the conferences I've been to. So I'd love to see more of our first responders getting better self-care. I'd like to see all of us getting better self-care.
Yeah. Well, and part of this is, talk about stress. Isn't it helpful to have like a daily practice is really where we're going with this, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, and you had asked me before we got on the air about the military project I worked on. I want tools that you can do daily and that you can do in the moment if you're faced with stress. And the group that actually won this contract with the military, it was very formal seated meditation based. And I thought, that's great. I'm all about formal seated meditation, except for you to go to the Army, the Marines, the whoever, and say, okay, everybody, we're going to sit down and meditate this morning. Well, that's fine, except some people are going to have a lot of trouble with that. There's going to be a lot of resistance to that. And if you're in a very fast acting situation, you can't be like, hang on, don't shoot me yet. You want stuff that could be done in the moment. And the downside I saw of this other program was it was so formalized that it didn't have any flexibility for, God, I'm feeling stressed right now, but I can't formally meditate. What do I do? It didn't give that option. Whereas ours addressed in the moment and practice every day for long-term benefit. And I think we have to look at that both ways. I meditate sporadically throughout the day in a completely informal way.
And hypnotherapy helps you with that immediate, isn't it?
Yeah, but you also can't stop and hypnotize yourself in a moment like that either. But we can set an anchor, right? So in hypnotherapy, like if you come to me for stress or anxiety, I might get you into a really relaxed state and then anchor in the word calm, so that when you touch these fingers and think the word calm, you get that feeling back through your body. But that's something that has to be done in advance. You have to have that set, and that's something you have to practice. Hypnotherapy. I just wrote an article about the misconceptions of hypnotherapy.
The devil is not getting into you.
No, I forgot about the devil.
Nancy did hypnotherapy with Gil Boyan. I think that's his name. And he was like, sleep in a deep slumber. And her partner in crime on this was Sylvester Stallone. This was back in the LA days before, years. I mean, we're talking a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then they did even past life regression, and she saw herself like a little Bantu boy running around in Africa. And years later, there she is living in the bush with me in Africa, doing all this conservation work and living with different tribes. So is that not weird? Like it's crazy.
I love past life regression. I have been doing past life regression since high school. I was an odd kid. I found an audio tape in the library and I put my little Walkman on and I listened to it and I went wherever I went and I started charting all my past lives. And I do past life regression in my office. And for anybody that doesn't believe in past lives, that's great. You don't have to. I don't care. If you have to make up the story that you're a princess in Russia in the 1400s and that gives you a better relationship with your father or gets rid of your migraines, you can tell me whatever story you want to. Now, I believe in past lives and reincarnation. In fact, I have all the things. I have a recording sitting here on reincarnation from Edgar Cayce that I want to listen
to. He's
cool. Edgar Cayce was amazing. This is actually John Van Auken, who was a big time hypnotherapist. I was digging through old crap in my desk and I found this unopened and I went, I should probably watch this. I happen to believe in reincarnation. It's the life and death cycle that makes the most sense to me, but you don't have to believe in it to explore it. And the cool thing now, and as we talk about sort of mental health globally, right, and how that's changing, the perception of reincarnation is changing because we're now seeing all these firsthand tales of children who would have no knowledge of the thing talking about the thing. I remember sitting in my office and this plane flew towards me, and then there was this loud boom and this searing pain, and I remember dying. All these kids that are born now that was 9/11.
I was going to say, are these the indigo kids or is that something different?
That's something different. Yeah, you have the indigo rainbow crystal. That's something different. But I mean, we're seeing kids turn to their mom and go, "You were my sister last time."
That's freaky.
Where are they getting this?
Yeah, see, apparently Nancy and I have swapped roles of mother and daughter throughout our entire thing. And I know so many people are like, no, People want to know how we do it. Well, we do have good fights. Oh, they're good. And then we have to sit down and go, we need to get back to work. Let's have a glass of wine and get on it. Because you do. I mean, we're going to argue. It's all creative stuff. It's all
Yeah.
creative. And that means our arguments are really tasty.
Oh,
But
I'm sure. I'm
no,
sorry I'm
they're
not
good.
experiencing that. Yeah. Well, and I
No,
believe
no, but
I believe
yeah,
it's not just a my belief, it's a sort of more bigger belief that we travel with a group of souls, just like a children,
sure.
like just like a theater troupe, right? You gather the same 10 people, and every year you get together for the summer and you put on a play. And this year maybe I'm the ingenue and you're the villain, or there's no part for you, so you're the
Yeah,
director, or I'm the stagehand. But you travel with the same group of people because you know how each other work. So yeah, I don't doubt
I
at all
like
that
that.
you guys have been together before and swapped.
Yeah,
That makes perfect
the
sense to me.
the psychic medium who talked, she's like, you've done this. And and she was really, she connected Nancy with her brother who had been murdered. And he came into the room doing flips. And so she says, I don't know who this is, but he's, and she didn't know any of this. She had no clue about us. Nancy did not believe in any of this, but she's the one who did past life regression and
Hmm.
believes in that. And so I'm going, yeah, right. I believed in it. And then when that happened, she was like, oh, and I believe as we travel so much, there's places you go and you're like, I've been here. I have absolutely been here.
Hmm.
I call it uh, deja vu dust because I believe every time we go somewhere, we're leaving. I know it sounds weird, like your skin cells there or something. I know it sounds weird, but we're leaving a piece of ourselves there.
Hmm.
And even if when you come back in the same lifetime, when you go back to that place, even if it's all changed, you still have that feeling. And you can
Hmm.
actually go in and out of that. It sounds, now people are going to think I'm tripped out, but you can go in and out of that feeling of this is the new feeling and this is the old feeling, and I can feel both when I want to. Does that,
Yeah.
that's trippy, but
Oh
you
no,
know,
wouldn't necessarily describe it that way, but that's a good way to think about it. But oh no, I have been drawn to certain places around the globe, and then when I show up, I go, oh yeah, Egypt.
yeah.
I have a huge draw to Egypt, Greece, um, Rome, Turkey, Ephesus in Turkey. I mean, like places in South Africa, places here in the United States. I am so drawn to old Hollywood. The second I saw the Hollywood sign when I moved cross country, I burst into tears and was like, I'm home. And then I kind of went, why is the land not on there anymore? Because you say Hollywood land. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, that's not right. That should say something else. Same thing when I was in Rome. Like I recognized things in Rome. I knew things about Rome that I wouldn't have known. And then I would read like the placard and go, I knew that already. So I think we are drawn to certain places. And I think a lot of that is past life stuff.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean,
again,
why
if you
not?
don't believe in it, that's totally fine.
That's
I can't
okay.
prove it or disprove it.
It just feels good.
It feels good. And look, I don't care what you believe if you're living a good life. And if you believe in heaven and hell, and that spawns you to be a good person because you want to go to heaven, awesome. If you believe in reincarnation and you want to fulfill your contract and live a better life so that you ascend and move through lifetimes and then eventually become an angel, great, whatever you believe, as long as you're living a good life. If you're an atheist and you believe we're born, we die, we're dust, as long as you're living a good life, I do not care what you believe.
Well, and that's the thing. I think it's all about how we connect. So we maybe even on this lifetime, we're here going, okay, this is going to my little spiritual setup here. This is what I'm going to believe. Then
Mm-hmm.
you come back and go, okay, well, now let's try that and see how it feels. No matter what it is, it's some form of feeling connected to others and some kind of
Yeah.
a family grouping. But talking about tripping out, I know we got to get going soon, but I wanted to ask you about psychedelics because, that's, you know, I know people. Yes, there's people who smoke mushrooms and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But
Well, you're
let's.
probably not going to smoke mushrooms, but yeah.
Well, I don't know. But anyway, apparently I'm not good at it. But there's you hear so much about people microdosing,
Hmm.
taking psilocybin. I don't know if I'm
Yep.
saying it, and then going down south and doing this ayahuasca thing,
Yep.
especially like the comedian Ron White famously went down to do ayahuasca to get over alcoholism.
Yep. Yep.
And he did it 3 times. And then I know some of the military are doing it as part of their therapy. And for some, it really works. And for some, it goes the other way. So are you seeing it? Because I wonder about that, thinking about past lives. I wonder if we're under those kind of influences, if we're taking ourselves through things, like
Yeah.
reliving them. What are we doing?
So it depends. It's so vast. So I'm a certified psychedelic coach. So I help people with prep and integration. And if you're in a place where it's legal, I can actually guide you on a journey. Now, in California, it's not legal yet. We have a couple safe cities. So we'll take the illegality out of it for now. MDMA assisted therapy is become huge for talking about the mental health thing, huge for mental health. Psilocybin journeys using things like ketamine, which is legal nationwide, for depression, for anxiety, for PTSD, for childhood trauma. All of this stuff is phenomenal. And I see big shifts in the mental health field getting on board with this. So there are more states trying to decriminalize psychedelics, more states adding in psychedelic programs like Colorado and Oregon, more places that are legalizing psychedelic therapy. I see this as the next big step in our mental health care, because there's phenomenal evidence that, that it's helping things like PTSD and anxiety disorders, addiction, drinking problems. I have a client who did his first psilocybin journey and had zero desire to touch alcohol. If he never had a drink again, and he was a, couple drink a night person, not to a level where it was interfering with his functioning, but it was definitely not good for his health. Didn't touch, had no desire. After my first psilocybin journey, I was like, oh, I don't need wine anymore. And if you remember, huge into wine. Wine was a big part of my life. And now I'm like, yeah, I mean, if I open a bottle every 2 weeks, as opposed to, opening a bottle a night and having really good wine and tasting it, and not drinking a whole bottle a night, to clarify.
I know you like tastings.
Yeah. I don't care anymore. I still enjoy it, but it's not like, oh, we should open up a bottle, So the journeys that I've had, and I've done ketamine sessions, I've done MDMA, psilocybin, bufo, which is the toad venom, LSD, MDA, so there's like, I dove into it. And to me, it was the most life-changing stuff I've done. It was the most spiritually elevating stuff I've done. And on my path of enlightenment, which is what I have stepped on a couple of years ago, nothing has helped me get there like the psychedelics and the meditation. And I have flipped through past lives on various psychedelics where I'm like, it's like a, God, remember way back, like in the 20s, I had these like photo, you put your face in the thing and you'd turn it and you could see changing the old like the horse trotting or whatever it was. That's what it looked like to me. It was just like flip, and I could see all these lifetimes just going by. Not everybody has experiences like that. Some people see pretty colors and funky geometric patterns, and that's it. Others sit down and commune with God.
So it's different than doing it recreationally, right? If you're getting a guided, I wanted to touch on that because I know so many people now that don't drink and they do gummies at night and they just relax and have a good night's sleep. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
I was just going to say, I see nothing wrong with that, or hitting the vape pen or taking your gummy or your mint or your drink, or, there's so many different, cannabis is legal in California. So many different ways to imbibe in that. And I've also done a conscious cannabis ceremony. Cannabis, to me, great recreationally. Some people don't like it because they feel it's a lower vibration medicine if you're like really serious about this type of stuff. I love cannabis. It's fun. Just kick back, watch some funny movies, giggle, and have some ice cream. It's fabulous. The conscious cannabis ceremony was very different. It was very specific strains. It was guided. It was probably one of the most psychedelic experiences I've had. And what's great is because it's legal in California, that I can guide people through. There's a difference between, hey, let's take some mushrooms and go to a concert, versus let's take some mushrooms, put on the eye mask, have the curated music, do the prep and integration. And I don't really believe there's a bad trip, except in the case of not having good set and setting, not knowing what you're doing. You go to Burning Man, somebody hands you, I don't know, and you take it and then you trip balls for 16 hours and you're traumatized. Well, of course, terrible set and setting. You didn't plan on doing it. You didn't prep for it. So I think if you want to do that recreationally, because recreation is also very important. If you're using as an escape, if it's becoming an addiction for you, especially things like ketamine and MDMA can be highly addictive. Look what happened to poor Matthew Perry. Now he was doing tons of ketamine. And the people that got it for him, kind of shame on them, but I understand that was their job. But things like MDMA, which is ecstasy, more than 4 times a year. This is not an every weekend party drug. It's highly addictive. It messes with your serotonin. There's a danger in doing that all the time. So just be smart about it. And if you want to do a journey, if you want to make this an experience, seek out a practitioner that is trained to help you. Don't buy a bunch of mushrooms, plop down in your bedroom, and hope your kid is okay with you doing it. That's anything. Be smart about it. And if you want to do it recreationally, knock yourself out. Just know where it's coming from and be safe about it.
I agree with you. And when you look at all these, ancient cultures, they've been doing this for years in different ways, and it's all guided. And it's not everybody's just there's always a spiritual path with it of what you're going to do,
especially peyote, ayahuasca. I mean, there's a huge lineage tradition of that. And well, the school I went to is called Third Wave, and he named it that because this is the third wave of psychedelics. Way back in ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, the Eleusinian mysteries, all this kind of stuff, they use psychedelics. And then we look at
wine together.
And wine together. And then we look at the second wave, which was the 60s, where they were starting to see some really great headway on scientific studies and the great uses for things like LSD, psilocybin, all these compounds. And then that was shut out because it's the dirty hippies. So that was the second wave. And now we're hitting the third wave of psychedelics, which has become more conscious. It's become more scientific. It's become, let's follow this protocol, show you this works. And now, please, can we just have it?
Damn, it's a Friday when we're recording this. I'm like, let's all go get high.
Hey, happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, really, to you too. But Kathy, it has been such a pleasure having you back on the show. My gosh, we could talk for hours on all this stuff. But you take care. Have a good weekend. Have a happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Everyone, kathygruver.com, right? That's the best place for everyone to connect with you.
kathygruver.com is my speaking, kathygruver.coach. If you want to work with me one-on-one, I have clients all over the world. So yeah, I'm happy to work with people.
She will travel too. We know that.
I will travel too.
Even if she on a trapeze or not.
That's true.
She might fly through the air. All right. Well, you take care.
You too, honey. Thank you so much for having me back. Please send Nancy my love.
I will. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.